This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show on Teachers Talk Radio with Graham Stanley. Today I'll be looking at finance and options for teachers who want to freelance with my special guest, Nicola Prentis.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show, everyone. Have you ever worried about your financial situation as a teacher? Have you ever thought about working freelance? Working as an English language teacher abroad, in particular, is an attractive proposition for all sorts of reasons. But depending on where you work, the reality can be precarious. Part-time or 0 hours contracts that only last 9 months. That may mean you have to look around for other sources of income. Working summer schools when the term ends is a popular option. Teachers I know end up invigilating exams, teaching online for different organizations. Some of them become coordinators, substitute teachers, senior teachers. In the long term, many teachers decide to become coordinators or supervisors or move into academic management, or they look towards academia and work at universities, etc. Teacher training is another popular option for teachers, especially when you gain valuable experience and knowledge of teaching you can pass on to other teachers. Then it becomes very easy, or at least easier than it is when you're first starting out. Then there's materials writing, of course. Writing course books or methodology books, graded readers or articles or blog posts can seem an attractive way of supplementing income too, especially if you're keen and interested in writing. Back when I worked as a teacher in Barcelona in Spain, I found myself working freelance, teaching at a university, translating for various organizations and doing private classes, etc. And I also started teacher training for publishers. I did conferences. I did workshops for state school teachers. I spoke at conferences, and I started thinking about and pitching ideas for methodology books and other types of writing because I was particularly interested in that. Now, my guest today has also had a very rich and varied life as a teacher and has supplemented her income through my writing materials. She's also worked freelance for some time and has helped others with their finances, particularly those teachers in English language teaching, working freelance and working abroad. This is something that I've started noticing is happening more and more recently. There are lots of teachers working freelance, particularly English language teachers, EFL teachers, etc. And providing support and help for others has become something that is popular as well. There are lots of people out there with a lot of experience who have started to offer others who want to do the same the benefit of their experience. Now, after my chat with Nicola, I will be talking a little bit about the kind of advice that you can find to help you if you want to branch out and start working as a freelance teacher. I will also talk a little bit more about my own experience working freelance and some of the things I've picked up from that, but also from looking at what other people are suggesting freelancers do. But first, my conversation about supplementing income as a teacher, managing finances, branching out with your own business, and getting involved in things such as writing projects, etc., is what I'll be doing when I talk about all of this and more with my special guest, Nicola Prentis. Now, Nicola Prentis taught English as a foreign language for 15 years, and along the way, she started writing. Award-winning graded readers and other projects followed. She never had a handle on money, though, until about 4 years ago, and now she runs her own business, chilledmoney.com, teaching other teachers, particularly people in English language teaching, how to get financial security. It's so teachers don't have to work until they die. Now, I'll be talking to Nicola about her experience of teaching, about managing finances and becoming freelance, and the steps she took to get to grips with her own finances and what she did and how her career developed, and a lot more after the Teachers Talk radio news.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The BBC has focused on remarks made by the former England men's football manager during the annual Richard Dimbleby lecture. Sir Gareth Southgate said in the lecture that he fears young men are spending too much time gaming, gambling and watching pornography, and that they need better role models. He said the UK needed to do more to encourage young people, especially young men, to make the right choices in life and to not fear failure. Sir Gareth said he feared that rather than turning to teachers, sports coaches or youth leaders, young men were searching for direction online. There they were finding a new kind of role model, a kind he described as callous, manipulative and toxic. The lecture focused on the importance of belief and resilience for young men, and Sir Gareth cited 3 things that he believes that were needed to build them: identity, connection and culture. He also referenced a report released by the Centre for Social Justice recently, which said boys and young men were in crisis, with a staggering increase in those not in education, employment or training. The full lecture is available on the BBC iPlayer. According to The Telegraph, GCSE exams could be cut back to reduce pupil stress. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has ordered the Curriculum and Assessment Review, and a 45-page interim report has just been published. The Telegraph focused on parts of the report which say some feedback to the panel indicates that exams can place too much stress on students. As part of polling commissioned by the review panel, it found that half of those completing their GCSEs last summer had found it difficult or very difficult to cope with stress during the exam period. The review said before its final report in the autumn, it will consider carefully whether there are opportunities to reduce the overall volume of assessment. The report also added, "We will take a subject-by-subject approach to consider assessment fitness for purpose. Consider potential risks and trade-offs with non-exam assessments." It did conclude, however, that traditional examined assessment should remain the primary means of assessment across GCSEs. However, the Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott, is reported in the article as saying, "The soft bigotry of low expectations is back." Other Conservative MPs said moves from exams to coursework were a very bad idea. Another said the review must not cave in to the unions. Full details of the report can be found on the Department for Education website, and the full article can be read on the Telegraph website. Other media outlets have also reported on the interim report, including Schools Week, who have a 14 key things you need to know version. The Guardian includes an opinion piece on T-levels. The article by Susanna Rustin describes the qualifications as a disaster, but says ministers won't admit it. The 2-year courses were launched in 2020, but only adopted in England, and were created to boost applied learning. There are currently more than 20 T-level options, from early years education to engineering, with students choosing only one. But Rustin writes that fewer than 3% of 16-year-olds enrol for a T-level, with the vast majority sticking with A-levels or other applied qualifications such as BTECs or a combination of both. Last year, about 7,000 students gained a T-level. The dropout rate, however, is higher than for other 16 to 18 courses, with almost a half of those enrolled in 2022 giving up. But data is incomplete as ministers postponed adding data to performance tables in January. Original plans were for T-levels to get up and running and then scrap other vocational qualifications. But in 2021, Protect Student Choice campaign launched, with a warning that if BTECs were axed, 155,000 teens would be left without any options at all. Labour's Skills Minister has since relaxed the rules around T-levels compulsory 45-day work placement and postponed the defunding of the older qualifications. T-levels are now part of the curriculum review led by Professor Becky Francis. Full details can be found on the Guardian website. Finally, the BBC USA and Canada newsfeed has covered the signing of a new presidential executive order to dismantle the US Department of Education. President Trump signed the order, fulfilling a campaign pledge, having accused the department of breathtaking failures and vowing to return the money it controls to individual states. The move is already facing legal challenges from those seeking to block the closure. Most US children attend public schools, which are free and run by local officials. The Federal Education Department administers student loans and runs programs to help low-income students. It does not operate schools or set curriculum, as this is primarily done by states and local districts. Trump has accused the US Department of Education of indoctrinating young people with racial, sexual and political material. America's largest teachers' union recently criticised Trump's plans, saying he doesn't care about opportunity for all kids. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Hello, welcome back everyone, and I'm very happy to have with me today as my special guest Nicola Prentis. Nicola, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you, Graham?
I'm very well, thank you. So Nicola, I usually start by asking my guests to talk a little bit about how they became involved in education, how they became teachers, etc. How was it for you?
Okay, so I think like a lot of people, I probably started from a position of not really knowing that TEFL was what I wanted to do. I did a degree in philosophy and you ejected out of the back of one of those with absolutely no idea what you could practically do in the world. And I spent a bit of time temping, and then a friend was doing the TEFL course and I just latched onto it like a life raft. that. And then, of course, I loved the course, and then off I went to Prague, and then I went to Thailand, and then I went to Spain, and I just had all of the amazing adventures that this lifestyle allows. And I did that for quite a long time, and I was just quite happy to go from place to place. And then I started to get a little bit restless, I think, which sounds funny when you're traveling all the time, but I was kind of mentally restless. I was sort of doing the same thing over and over with the teaching. I'd been doing it for over 10 years. And a friend sent me a link to somebody that was looking for a writer to write quizzes for the BBC Learning English website. And that's kind of how I started materials writing. But really my entry point was that I had this revelation one day, because I was still teaching, and I was using graded readers, which I loved. Students loved them. And I would make a big, I'd stretch them over several classes. And then I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, somebody writes those. Why can't I write one? And so I literally sat down in my room, and I required of myself to come up with the idea for a story. I just sat there and let my mind wander until I found a hook. And I came up with this idea of how when I was a kid, I would try to catch my reflection out in the mirror. I thought that if I could move fast enough, it wouldn't be able to catch up with me. And that just sparked an idea. And I came up with this thing called the tomorrow mirror, where a boy's looking at his mirror and he's seeing the future, seeing his reflection in the future. And so I just didn't know any better. I just started literally calling the publishers and just being asked to put through to the person who commissions graded readers. I mean, I don't think that's really how it's done, but that's how I did it. And I did eventually get to somebody who said, send me it. So I did. I had it rejected a couple of times as well. It wasn't like the very first one, but I did get it accepted by, oh my God, I should know this, shouldn't I? Pearson, I think it was. And so that was really my entry point into realizing that there are ways to do this. And I didn't just cold call publishers again after that, but that was how I started.
Wow, that's amazing. That is probably very unique. I don't imagine many people got their first break into publishing materials through cold calling publishers, but it's certainly, it worked for you. It's great.
It did.
So what was it that you said you became restless with teaching? So you started teaching, you enjoyed it, you were in Prague, in Thailand, in Spain, and then you obviously decided you wanted something more than teaching. Did you have it in mind when you started writing that reader that you wanted to kind of combine teaching with writing materials or writing readers, or was it a change of career that you were looking for?
It was just, I mean, I couldn't have told you this then, but it's very obvious to me now. I just like learning how to do new things. And so I've done that a lot. I'm a self-taught writer. I wasn't a self-taught teacher because I had taken the qualification, but in a sense, after that, if you do the TEFL course, CELTA course, whatever it is you do, after that, you are really discovering a lot of it for yourself. So I think it probably started with that. And then, self-taught writer, I used to go to workshops and all of that kind of thing. And I think that restlessness that I'm describing is just after a while, I get bored and I want to learn a new thing. And, as we'll talk about later, the new thing that I learned was about personal finance and how you can grow money from your savings. And then after that, I had to learn marketing and how to have a business and stuff. And so I'm constantly just, I don't know what my cycle is. Maybe after about 4 years, my brain starts going, need more, feed me.
Interesting. So just to pull you back to the place you were at when you started writing, once you'd found a publisher for that first reader, was that something that you thought, okay, I'm going to do more of this? And was it writing more fiction, more readers for students that appealed to you? Or were you thinking about other types of writing, course books, etc., that kind of thing as well?
Yeah, what I wanted to do was write fiction and get paid for it. And that's what graded readers looked like an opportunity to do for me. And I wrongly thought that because I had, now an established relationship with that publisher, that I would be able to send them my next idea and they'd say, yes, let's publish that. And that was completely wrong. I never managed to get, I don't think, a graded reader published by the same publisher twice. Every time I thought, this is the one, this is the relationship that's going to last. And it just doesn't, because the commissioning editors move on or that department shuts down. But I really thought that I was on a kind of pathway. And graded readers was still what I wanted to do. But I then realised that there's other kinds of writing and publishing. And then there was a guy he basically opened up an agency for ELT materials writers with the thought that this is the way the traditional publishing model works. The agent puts writers in touch with publishers and you do deals. And so I got on his books, and then I, that meant that I got other kinds of work. So I wrote bits and pieces for various publishers. But again, I thought this is the way, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a course book of my own. And I managed to write a speaking skills book, which still sells a little bit, but not much. That's about 10 years old now. And again, I thought, oh, I've got my name on the front of a book. This is it. It was never it, Graham, never. And so I just, I just slowly got a bit disillusioned with that, because the publishing industry changed around the time that I got into materials writing. So it wasn't really like you would have one author with their name on the course books, the ones that we all know. That just doesn't really happen anymore. So I maybe if I'd got in 10 years earlier, it might have happened, but it just didn't. And so I found myself writing a lot of stuff that not only did I not care about because it wasn't mine, I was downright embarrassed by some of it. Some of the stuff that goes into course books is so bad you can't believe you're being asked to write it.
I think it's probably because there's a lot of kind of content that seems to be very bland.
Yeah.
But I think that's natural, isn't it? Because of the kind of mass appeal that a lot of course books need to have around the world. There's a lot of kind of the individual flavour or interest tends to get sort of flattened, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. And even that happened eventually in some ways with the graded readers, because there was the last graded reader that I was involved in was the like no turning back moment for me, because they wanted 4 short stories. I wrote one of them, 3 other authors wrote the others, and then I wrote the kind of, like the questions and the exercises and all the stuff that goes around it. And then when they sent me my author copy, my name wasn't even on it. They made up a fake name and put it as if one fake person had written all 4 stories. And I was just, the one thing that you want is to see your name on a book, even if, I would have quite happily shared the cover with the 4, with the 4 of us, but they just said, oh, well, there wasn't room on the page.
Oh dear. You said earlier that when you got involved in writing materials, etc., readers, that the publishing industry had changed in English language teaching publishing. Could you explain a little bit more about that? What had changed?
So the big change was that what they started doing was having teams of authors. So because it wasn't like it used to be where they would put out the intermediate level of the book, because that was the one that was always sold in the biggest numbers. They'd see if that did well and if it justified writing the level up and the level down. And sometimes that would mean that the same author could work on, or same author pair, it was often a pair of authors, would work on that whole series. And then what they started doing is they wanted to put out entire series at the same time as quickly as possible. So it would be various people all working on the same project. You just pieces would be signed out to people. And then there was an awful lot of, and no one talks about this, an awful lot of ghostwriting, where the authors that made those books famous in the first place, their name would be on the cover, and there'd be people like me not getting paid very much, not on a royalties deal, writing the texts that your name would never appear on. And it stopped after a while. It stopped being about my name. I didn't care if I hadn't written a whole book. I didn't want my name on it. That was fine. But it's just that was the mark of the change. So it appeared to be something that it wasn't, and it was really just lots of people with the work parceled out. And then it changed even more. So it wasn't even the publishers handling this stuff anymore. It was packagers, and that is such a mess. The projects are a mess. And I mean, I'm saying all of this now because I don't care, because I don't do this work anymore. But I could never have said this stuff at the time.
No, I guess saying that kind of thing would affect your potential for getting more work.
Yes.
So when you say it's the packagers, that's interesting. I've not heard that before. What do you mean by packager, and how is that relationship with the writer?
It's a third party. So instead of having all of the editors and the designers and the project managers and all the rest of it working within the publisher, a lot of those people are now freelance. Some of them work for third party. I don't know what you call them. They're a packager. They go and they find the people who do the design. They go and they find the people who do the writing. They find the people
who edit project and manage everything.
Yes,
in a way.
They are ELT people, and a lot of them used to work in-house at the publishers. But the thing is, the publisher obviously sets a budget for this, and then the packager needs to do that as cheaply as possible because they've agreed to that price. And sometimes the publisher has set a price that's not realistic, or the packager has said, made an offer that's not realistic because they wanted to get the gig, and then the writers get paid hardly anything. I think the editors get paid better than the writers. I think. I mean, I don't know. And so it's just a lot of people all working as fast as possible and trying to create a cohesive whole out of the work, but there's no cohesion really with the projects, and I've worked on some absolute nightmares, and I've had books that have had errors inserted in after the last time I saw them, and there's nothing,
really?
These are paper printed books, and one of them, particularly was painful for me. Like it actually, that book went on to win an award, but I know that there was an error in there that I didn't put in there. So, and it bothers you really, like you care about the quality of your work, but of course nobody can proofread their own work. Somebody needs to be doing it. I mean, to be fair to the packages and all of that stuff, I don't think that there are many ELT course books that are going out with having not been proofread. I don't think that's the case, but I have worked on one for primary market in Spain, big publisher, and there were things in there that when they sent me the proofs, I said, oh, but like this is wrong and this is wrong. And they said, oh, don't worry, you'll be surprised. The teachers don't really notice. And I thought, yes, they do.
If anybody's going to notice, it's an English teacher.
Yes. I was just gobsmacked, but they needed to get it out quickly.
Oh, dear.
So, and it's like we kind of, a lot of teachers think that, and it used to be like this, they think that the books are trialed in the classroom and they see what works and they iron things out. No. It's rushed to press as fast as it possibly can be, and it's never been tested in a classroom. It's the case now.
So before we move there, which I'm really interested in talking to you about, Nicola, just a bit more about writing and publishing, etc. You continue to be interested in writing. That is the case, isn't it? But
I love it.
Kind of have moved away from the kind of writing you started out with.
I've moved away from the kind of writing that paid me in ELT. I think, I'd written a little bit of fiction before I started doing that. And I ended up like self-publishing that book. It was a chick lit, for want of a better word. So I was also starting to write things, like travel, lifestyle, like whatever I thought I could get published. If I could write something that somebody would buy, then I would do it. So I've got quite a lot of bylines in things like Business Insider, and I had an article about cesarean sections in Cosmopolitan, at least on the online version. So I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and I didn't move away from that. ELT looked like the source of stable, secure work in a field that I knew about, but it just wasn't stable, it wasn't secure, and it wasn't well paid. And it started to erode my feeling that I had any kind of a talent. I was churning out generic, boring stuff that wasn't me. And it made me feel like, what if I've lost my voice? So it wasn't, there were lots of reasons why I stopped writing for ELT, but one of the reasons that I really started to hate it was because I just didn't believe in what I was writing. And that is going to sound pretentious, but part of writing is honestly just being available for the muse to speak to you and feeling like you are channeling something that's bigger than you, and you're just there receiving it, and you've got to write it down before it goes away. I did not have that feeling writing texts about the environment for a course book. So it was that, and so I stopped doing that, and I do still write, but I haven't really gone back to fiction because that feeling that I can't do it anymore is still haunting me, and I really need to get over it and just start doing it again. But now what I spend a lot of time writing is marketing content, and it sounds really boring, but I love it because it's like when you write for your own blog, you get to say what you want. You get to be yourself. In fact, it's really important to be yourself if you want your marketing to be authentic. So marketing and having my own business were two things that I thought I never wanted to do, but actually they've allowed me a place to write again. So I'm very happy. I'm the only person I know that loves creating posts for LinkedIn and newsletter material because I have millions of ideas.
Yeah, I think I have to say you're very good at it. Of all the people who I kind of subscribe to or look at on places like LinkedIn or the newsletters, the things that you write do kind of jump out as being, they grab attention. So I think you're very good at it.
You cannot see how much I'm smiling, but this is like you're speaking to my soul, like my writer soul really is, this is me at my most alive, having ideas and then being able to write them. And it doesn't matter to me very much what the topic or the theme is. I just, if I feel it, I want to write it.
I think you probably hit upon something that is important. I think you're very convincing, and a lot of the things you write about are very arresting and very, I think you know the audience very well that you're writing for. And particularly in today's world, I think that comes through in what you write compared to a lot of what seem to be kind of generic, I suspect, quite a lot of AI generated
Yes.
soulless content that
Yep.
you do see out there these days. The human brain kind of detects that, I think.
Mhm.
So to see something with a bit of passion or a bit of enthusiasm behind it really comes through, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I think that AI in some ways is a writer's best friend, because the people who stand out because they're actually saying something that AI could never have written because it comes from the heart will do much better. And actually the fact that your competition is now so bland makes that easier.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I'd like to explore before we talk about all things finance is the moment that you decided that you wanted to become freelance, that you wanted to have your own business. You said that originally that was the last thing you wanted to do, but then what happened to make you change your mind and for you to embrace that freelancer part of you?
Well, I had already been freelance for quite a long time. So because the materials writing was never that I had, a job, I always just went from gig to gig. So I'd been in that. I haven't worked for somebody since, I don't know, before 2012. And even then that was summer school, so short jobs. So that wasn't new to me. But the kind of have your own business to me always meant having to do sales and marketing, and I didn't want to do that. And I'd had ideas in the past for businesses, but I just realized, I actually said to somebody once, I would rather write something or have an idea and do the creation part of it than ever make any money from it, which is obviously not a very possible way to live. So when the change came for me, when I'd had the very last of these projects, I said, I worked for a lot of nightmare projects. I had this awful project that had been delayed. The work was boring to start off with and it was badly paid, but also they kept delaying the start date. And I'd cleared my calendar for this thing that was supposed to be this big job that would go on for like 3 months, and they kept delaying it. It ended up 2 months. And so in that time I had no work. And then they changed the scope of the work and they ended up basically offering the same work for half the money. And I was like, I'm not ever doing this ever again. And at the same time in that year, so that was in about autumn, but at the same time, since about June or May, I'd started realizing I don't have a pension. I don't have anything. My sister was in my ear because she's got a full-time steady job and has done forever. And she was in my ear going, what about retirement? And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. But I did start to listen, and I had just started. I sorted out my UK pension from the national insurance. And then I kind of started wondering, like, what do I do with my savings? It's not enough to buy a house. And basically that pathway was happening at the same time as this awful gig was going on. And so when I quit this gig, I just thought, how do I turn my interest into this thing into something that I can make money from? Because I know how to teach stuff and I know how to write educational materials. So like, how do I do this? And then it wasn't really I decided to have a business. It's just I just thought I've got to combine these things because I'm so interested in it. And so I looked around I had remembered that Rachel Roberts was doing some kind of coaching, and I had so many ideas and I just didn't know where to start with it. And I didn't know what to do to be practical about having an idea. And I just went and looked her up to see what is it that she actually does. And as it turned out, her coaching business had turned into a foundational sort of business program. It was the perfect timing. So I couldn't start soon enough. As soon as I emailed her, I wanted to start the next day. I was really impatient because I'd woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning on the day after New Year's Day, I think, and suddenly remembered. And then I booked a call, and I couldn't have the call until the 6th of January because she was on holiday. And I was like, but now I want to speak about this now. And then I had to wait, I think, until, I can't remember if it was February or March for the course to start. And I was so impatient. So it was just that I realized that I needed something, and luckily she was there to fulfill it. And now there are a lot more coaches that I'm aware of that do that kind of how to have a business, because how to have a business does basically mean marketing and sales. And it was just, I was aware that I would need to learn this thing, and I just thought, okay, roll your sleeves up and get it done. But it was a big surprise to me that as soon as I realized that marketing was just creating content and writing, I was like, oh, I love this. So I had never thought that I would love that bit of it, but of course it's writing, and creating the content for the course was writing, and putting the stuff on my website was writing. So most of what my business feels like to me is writing.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion. deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
So then you decided to turn what was a kind of growing worry for yourself about not being financially secure, worried about retirement, pensions, savings, etc. You started looking into that for yourself and then realized there's a lot here that other people should know about and I can help them with that. Is that the way it developed?
Yes, because what I realized was if I didn't know about any of this stuff, and what I mean by this stuff is pensions and why you should have one, and what do you do to get one, and what is a pension even, and what do you need to have in place to have some kind of financial security, and essentially how do you grow. I kind of had this light bulb moment where I realized rich people make money from their money, and I was like, well, if they can do that, then I can do that. And then it was just realizing nobody else in ELT's got a clue about this stuff either. I was so sure that nobody else knew anything about it, because if they did, then in all my years of teaching, when I was in schools and all of the rest of it, and all the teachers that were my friends, one of us would have been having a conversation about this stuff, and we never had. And I'd never been to a training session on it, and I'd been to IATEFL several times, and I'd never heard anybody speaking about it. So I just realised everybody's as clueless as I am, and I can take that cluelessness away. And it's so important that we're not this clueless, because honestly, the amount of people that get to retirement and they've got nothing, no money, no pension, no income, they've got to work. I did summer school a couple of years ago again after a break for having children, and I was the assistant manager, and there was a teacher there who was 76 years old. He was getting £200 a month from the UK, and that was it. And he was just having to work forever, and he was miserable, and he was at summer school teaching 6 days a week and doing a 1-day excursion.
Yeah, it's also not even that, isn't it? It's like, I think a lot of teachers who work in this precarious English language teaching sector that, well, it can often be precarious, also have the attitude of, well, it's okay, I won't retire. I'll just keep on working, I'll keep on teaching. But I think as you get older, you start to realize, well, actually, there's sort of two factors that come into this. One is, can I? Because as you get older, you have less energy. Your body starts reacting against age, your mind as well. And you start wondering, how long am I going to be able to teach physically, to be on my feet, and mentally to be able to cope with this? But also, there's also another factor, is that at what point will people, because ageism does exist, I think, what point will schools, organizations stop wanting to employ me as well? Yeah,
and that definitely happens. I hear that all the time. And some countries, if it's a new place that you need to go to, you can't even necessarily get a visa beyond a certain age. So it's really, ageism is huge in this industry and every other one. But there's lots of people who want somebody younger wrongly, because then they're getting a less experienced teacher, but that's how people are.
So, Nicola, just to kind of move on to some advice for teachers who are listening, who are perhaps starting to think, oh yeah, this is something I need to do. I imagine the advice differs depending on the age of the teacher, but can you give any kind of general advice to teachers out from country to country, not really thinking about their financial future, pensions, national insurance contributions, if they work in the UK that they're not paying, etc., etc. Is there anything general that you can say to the wide range of people, teachers listening now, that will help them?
Yeah, so the first one is, it's never too early, but it's also never too late. So if you're in your 20s and just think, boring, like I did, this doesn't matter for me now, it doesn't matter about retirement. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But just be aware that if you start saving some money now and you put it in the kinds of accounts where it can grow, like pensions, like investments, like ISAs, things like that, just be aware that it will multiply like, weeds grow. And so one day, with not very much money going into it, you'll have this huge pot that you're sitting on, and you might want to buy a house with it. You might not, might not want to wait till you're 60 or 70. But if you just start doing that now and don't really think about it, very small amounts will turn into a really big one. So just do it and don't even think about why you're doing it. And if you're older, then it's not too late. Like, you haven't left it too late. You don't need to be scared that if you start looking at your money, all you're going to find out is that it's impossible. It's not the case. It is different from when you're in your 20s. But lots of people, for example, have no idea that the country that they're from has got a state pension system that they may be able to pay into, even if they're not living there. Now, obviously, not every country has that. The UK does have that system. And most people have no idea that when you move overseas, you can carry on paying into the UK state system and receive a full pension one day. And that full pension at the moment is £11,500 a year for a very small amount of money that you put into it every year. And other countries might have things like that, so just find out if yours is one, and you might be able to get yourself a state pension. The country where you're working in, investigate, are you employed by somebody who is actually making contributions for you? Are you eligible for the system, the state system in the country where you are? Are you eligible in a load of other countries that you've worked in? Because quite often the answer is yeah. And so you just start collecting things, and it's quite small changes sometimes that you can make that make a very big difference. Lots and lots of people that I help have just got money sitting in a current account, and literally just me saying to them, let's have a look and see what high interest accounts there are for you to put your money in. And for a lot of people, that simple change, they make hundreds of pounds off their savings that they wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because a lot of teachers are normally very, very busy, and the last thing they think about is this, but actually it's very important for them to think about it. One of the things that I think perhaps is difficult for a lot of English language teachers is the fact that they have worked in lots of different countries for short periods of time, which complicates matters. Is that something you've found? And what do you think teachers can do about that? Sorry.
I think people think it's this huge obstacle, and it's not. It's if you've moved around a lot, and you intend to continue moving around a lot, then you just open the kind of thing that will allow for that. And so, it's too complicated for me to go into now, but you'll open this kind of thing instead of that kind of thing. And there's tools. I mean, digital nomads, it's this big lifestyle, and they're not all not putting any money away somewhere. You just need to make sure that you've got the kind of thing. And so when I take people through the courses or have meetings with them, this is the kind of thing that we can talk about. And it's not so easy to talk about now, but it's not the obstacle you think it is. And it's also not time consuming, because once you've done the research, and I can help people do that, to find out what is the thing that you can open, the thing after that is that then it doesn't take you any time whatsoever, because you don't have to do anything. You just keep putting money in, that's all. And it grows by itself. And so I think people are willing to spend an awful lot of time on their work and doing things in order to be able to work, like taking training qualifications and commuting and buying clothes that are suitable for work, and the million other things that you have to do to fund your work before you even get paid. This is the expenses that you have and the time that it takes. And then I'm talking about something that doesn't really take very much time, and people feel that they're too busy to do it. And I think our priorities are wrong. We're so motivated to keep doing everything to support our working lives and nothing to support our non-working income.
Is there like a checklist for teachers who are listening at the moment and think, okay, I'm going to start? Where do I start? Is there kind of like, number one, look at this, number two, look at that? Is there something like that you could perhaps suggest?
Definitely. So number one is start building yourself an emergency fund. And that wants to be basically, most people will say like 3 to 6 months worth of your immediate and necessary expenses. So your rent, your bills, not going out for lunch and going on holidays, but the things that you must pay, so that if you lose your job or you're ill or you have to go back home or anything like that, you've got money that you can immediately access, preferably that it's earning interest, not just sitting there in an idle account. And that you've got that, because that's security. And I think that, like you said, TEFL's really precarious. Most people's contracts are quite short. You just need to know that you've got money that's sitting there for if you need it, and you don't touch that money unless it's that emergency. But the other thing I think is make sure that that emergency fund will also cover a flight home to wherever home is for you. And I don't just mean a flight in general. I mean, look and see, if I needed to fly at midnight tonight, how much would that flight cost? And it'll cost a fortune because you're booking it so short notice, but that's how much you want to set aside so that you can do that. Because otherwise, how are you going to solve that situation if you need to go back suddenly? You're going to need to go into debt. That's going to be an even bigger problem. So number one is that emergency fund. Number two is start looking into state pensions in the countries that's relevant for you. And number three is private pension. And the reason to have a private pension is that you will usually get some kind of tax deduction against it. So the money that you put into a private pension will reduce your tax bill in some way. Different countries, different systems, but essentially it's free money from the government coming back to you. So those are the three things that I would say sort out, and then after that you can start getting into into other things.
That sounds like very good advice. You mentioned debt. Now, a lot of teachers perhaps will be in debt because of student loans or for other reasons. Teaching isn't a profession where people can earn a lot of money. Would you suggest, if a teacher says, well, that's all very well, you saying I should put money towards a pension and savings, etc., but first I need to clear my debt, and it doesn't seem like I can get out of that debt very easily, etc. Do you have any advice for anyone who is in that situation?
So it's going to be very specific to how much the interest is on that debt, because if it's high interest like a credit card, then your priority really should be towards that. But if it's low interest debt, like a student loan is often low interest debt, depends where you're from, then what you can do is sort of channel your money that you're paying into that debt and maybe put some of it towards the debt and some of it towards some money that's going to grow. Because if the growth potential is higher interest than the debt, then you are making money as well as paying down the debt. And so it does depend what kind of debt you've got, but high interest definitely get it paid as soon as possible. But if it's low interest debt, it really might be better for you to put that money in something, and maybe you could get to the point where you're actually paying the debt repayments with interest from something else is possible. But there are two kinds of techniques for paying down debt, and one is that you sort of prioritize paying off the debt as fast as possible in general, and another one is where you just take the highest interest debt, pay that off first, and then the next one and the next one. And so there's quite a lot of books and resources you start looking at, like the snowball method is one of them, for example. So actually ChatGPT is a very good source of help for this kind of stuff. Just give me 3 different ways I could pay down this debt. What should I prioritize? Get it to help you work out a plan.
Interesting. That sounds like good advice, and it does sound like something that it's very difficult to generalize on, which I imagine is the case of most of financial aspects of people's life. But I think they could definitely start by thinking about it and doing some research.
Exactly. And it's easier than ever to do that kind of research now because ChatGPT can help you in that way. And then you can check that against maybe some other source of information. It's often better, like if you're going to go, I'm not saying you need to speak to a financial advisor necessarily for a debt problem, but let's say you do go to a financial advisor. If you already know, then you can ask the right questions and you can understand the information that comes back to you. Because the problem I had at the beginning was I didn't understand how any of it worked. So I did speak to a financial advisor. I didn't understand anything they said. So that wasn't useful. So, go prepared is much better way of getting the most out of some kind of advice like that.
So what did you do when you went to the financial advisor and then you realized there's a lot of this I don't know? Did you then start reading books, going online, looking and talking to people? What was the way that what did you do to actually become more sort of financially aware?
So the thing, I did do all of those things, but the thing that really was the thing that made the difference was podcasts, because I could listen to different people talking about the same topic. And so it really layered in the information for me. I could listen when I was on the way to pick up my kids from school. I could fit it around my life really easily. And the repetition was really good for me. But at the beginning, it was funny because when I spoke to the financial advisor, and I was, thinking that I would just sort of hand it all over to them and not realizing that if I did that, it would be very expensive. Now I know that, because a financial advisor will charge you for handling your money forever. And it costs you really thousands and thousands over your lifetime if you pay somebody a very small fee. You think it's small, it's not. But the thing that put me off was that she was going to charge me £750 just to set it up. And I'm way too tight for that. I was just like, I'm not paying somebody £750 to sort out some stuff, and I won't even understand what she's done. So I'll be just a hostage. And then once I started sort of thinking like there must be ways of making money from your money. And I started thinking that I needed to listen to like CNN Market Watch and stuff like that. And like where they're talking about trends in the markets and stuff. And I was really trying to listen to it. But one, it was boring. And two, I just thought, but they're just making it up. One person will say that he thinks this is going to happen. And another person will say they think this is going to happen. And nobody knows the answer. And then after it happens, they say, oh, yes, that's what I said. And so I didn't really believe in it. But then I found people who were talking about personal finance, and that's where I realized, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
So a recommendation would then be, from your own personal experience, just to kind of check out some podcasts, start trying to listen to them, find find one that is understandable, that talks about the kind of things that you need to do, etc. Would that be the case?
Yeah, I think that's a great source of information. And the only thing with that is it does take longer. It took me about 6 months from beginning to end of the process where I started sort of trying to work out what to do. And then I really learned quite a lot when I was writing the course, because there were things that I realized I didn't understand as well as I thought I did when you have to explain it to somebody else. And now I know it inside out. And so if you want to do a course, then you can get all of my knowledge and my mistakes in a few weeks, and then my actual help to do it. Because what the thing with listening and learning the knowledge and all of the rest of it, or reading it, what it doesn't give you is the psychological mindset to get over the fear of doing it. And sometimes you just need a person to help you with that. And I've got a lot of people at the moment who are working with me and are going, oh, but all of this news, Trump, the tariffs, the stock market's crashing. My flatmate just sent me an image of stock market loses 4 trillion in 30 days. And I was like, excellent. It's a good time to buy. And she's like, really? I'm like, yes, because it's counterintuitive, all of this stuff. We want to hitch our wagon to something that looks successful. So when the stock market's going up, we're happy to be in it, but we're fearful that it will go down. And when it's going down, we don't want to get in because it all looks like such a mess. But actually, as I said to her, like, which is better, the dress that you buy in the sales or the one that you bought full price? The same thing.
That's a good analogy.
And it's just, even if you've sort of understood it, I think without somebody saying to you, look, it's okay, and explaining to you again why it's okay, you have to live through a stock market downturn to feel okay about the next one, I think. And I have now done that. This is my second big market wobble. And I think that helps people believe you, because it sounds really terrifying at the moment. And I'm not saying that the world isn't terrifying at the moment, but I think the stock market's the one thing that will recover, because it always has.
So I'm going to pick up on something that you just mentioned, that a lot of people are afraid. They have this fear about looking into this. They put it off because it makes them anxious. They're afraid of it. They have kind of bad feelings. It's not something that they enjoy. And we tend to kind of try to avoid things that we don't give us kind of pleasure, or until we're kind of so desperate about it, then we need to tackle with it. Is that something you come across quite a lot?
Yes, I think it's a big block to people working with me in the first place, because in order to confront the problem of financial security, unfortunately, you do have to go and confront it. You have to go and look at it, and people are worried that they're going to, all these things they've buried in their subconscious or under the carpet, that they're going to have to go and look at these things, and that it's going to be just as bad as they feared. And the thing is, there's a monster's hiding under the bed, isn't it? When you switch the light on, it's all easier to deal with, and especially when you've got somebody who's there going, it's okay, I was in exactly the same situation. And I have loads of fears around money. I am a big money hoarder who's terrified of losing money, but I find that I've found a way to look at investing in pensions and all the rest of it in a way that helps me feel okay about it. So I share a lot of those fears. I think that people in TEFL are especially afraid of money. We just seem to be a certain type of person, whether that's chicken or the egg, because we are that type of person, we end up in TEFL, or TEFL makes us like that. I'm not sure. But all of your fears around money are solvable by dealing with them, just like everything else, really. So it's just take the little steps. And I do find that most people in the end, they're like quite surprised how much they've enjoyed it and how interested they are. And then they come out with all of this knowledge that helps them understand how the world works. Because when you hear all these things in the news, most financial stuff and political stuff is so tied up together, and you do understand it better when you know.
Yeah, so information is key, getting to know
information
more,
is power, knowledge is power, education is power. I mean, these are not concepts that are surprising to any teacher.
Yeah. You're right. So, Nicola, I'm going to wind things up now, but this has been fascinating talking to you. It's also stirred up a few of my own worries that I need to start thinking about a bit more. So, but I think I will thank you for that. And I'm sure a lot of the teachers out there listening in will also feel the same way.
Well, great. That's what I want. I just want to make this stuff a bit more manageable for people.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Nicola.
Thank you.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
So I thought it would be interesting to take a broad look at some of the advice offered online for teachers interested in working as a freelancer, particularly those working abroad as English language teachers. I've noticed there's been a proliferation of people offering advice too for freelance teachers these days, everything from setting up your own business to developing different income streams to marketing and more. So let's start with setting up your own business or starting out as a freelance teacher. A consulted advice online written by a number of experts. There's a lot out there, from YouTube channels by recognized experts to blog posts written independently or on publisher sites. Here's an overview of the best way for teachers to start out as a freelancer based on that advice. Fundamentally, it's crucial to understand that as a freelancer, you're also a business owner. And this means you have to take responsibility for many aspects beyond teaching, such as finding clients, managing finances, and administration. Here's a breakdown of how to get started. Number one, organization. Start by assessing your financial needs, calculate the income required for your standard way of living, and determine the amount of hours you need to work. Get to grips with administration. Keep your documents, invoices, receipts, and records in order. And if this seems too much for you, consider hiring an accountant, at least initially, to help with your finances, tax obligations, and understanding any specific financial aspects of working freelance, like health insurance, etc., or pension contributions. It's important to set your long-term goals and short-term targets, so you have an idea of what you want to achieve and you can make plans to get there. Now, when it comes to getting work and finding students, you can start with online schools. Working for online schools can provide a degree of stability while you build your private student base. And the downside is that you'll perhaps, most likely not be able to set your own hourly rate, and you may have to work when the hours are available rather than when you want to work. Networking and building connections is important. So if you build a professional network through personal recommendations and word of mouth, these are usually the most effective way to find students. If you find local websites and groups where you can post adverts, this will help you. Facebook groups, for example, can be good to help you find students, but before you post in groups or on other social media, ensure this aligns with the group's rules. You should build a personal brand and online presence. So make an effort to get more widely known. Now, you don't need to sell yourself, just focus on clearly communicating what you offer and how you can help people. Having a good CV, a brochure, or even business cards can be important when seeking teaching opportunities. Now, something you should do is think about your niche. So developing a specific niche can help you stand out and increase your value. What do you do that others don't? Instead of being a generalist teacher, for example, can you become known for something specific? And I always remember someone in Barcelona that I know who started focusing upon teaching seniors, because this was an area that had started becoming more popular, but it wasn't that well catered for. And so he decided to focus particularly on that area and definitely thrived. Next, financial considerations and pricing. You need to determine your pricing. Understand that the pricing that you determine as a freelancer needs to cover your costs, which could include everything from sick pay to equipment to holiday pay, in addition to your earnings. Now, don't assume there is a low limit on what you can charge. Don't try to charge the cheapest in the market. Research this, and you can even test higher prices and make sure that you communicate the value that you in particular offer. Once you've developed payment policies, which means you need to decide on when and how you're going to be paid, invoicing students, for example, and what happens with late payments, and communicate these upfront to your students. Consider paying yourself a regular monthly salary from your business income and saving and investing the rest rather than always spending what you earn. Time management is particularly important. You need to get good at time management because your time is your money, so you need to use it effectively. You should create a weekly schedule that includes time for working in your business as well as teaching, along with breaks. And you should also try to find some time for professional development also. You need to set clear boundaries, define when your working hours are and when you're going to take on students, etc., to avoid working too much. Mindset and professional development is particularly important when you start out as working freelance as well. You need to adopt the mindset of a business owner, which means you shift from being a teacher, an employee, to managing all aspects of your new business. Invest in professional development by continuously learning and improving your skills. And this can include taking courses or attending conferences. You need to recognize the need for developing new skills. So being a great teacher is only one part if you want to run a successful business. You also need to develop skills in marketing, sales, business management, and other things. You can consider courses and reaching out for help and resources to help with things that you might not be familiar with, such as marketing, for example. Surround yourself with a supportive community. Connect with other freelancers. They can help you and they can encourage you, and you can learn from their experiences. Joining a community of practice is a good way to do this. Another way is by building your own PLN or personal learning network. Start small. It doesn't have to be everything or nothing. You can start freelancing gradually while perhaps still working part-time. You should also test your offer. So before you invest heavily in creating courses or materials, try testing the demand for them first. So by following this advice, you can lay a solid foundation on trying out your business, and you can then become successful by building upon that. And remember that it is likely to take quite some time and effort if you want to build a successful business as a freelance teacher. What comes through when looking at the advice online and in my chat with Nicola, and when I think of my own experience working freelance, is this need for a change in mindset. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. So as I mentioned earlier, the crucial mindset change for transitioning to freelancing is to move from thinking like an employee to thinking like a business owner. This fundamental change in perspective can affect how you approach all aspects of your work, or should affect how you approach all aspects of your work. And here are some key elements to think about when it comes to this. First of all, take full responsibility. So as an employee, as a teacher working for a school or an academy, you don't need to worry about finding students, ensuring a steady income, and managing administrative tasks. They're all handled usually by your employer. But working freelance, you are completely responsible for all of these things, including your income, your taxes, health insurance, and pension contributions. And this requires you to be more proactive. You can start by seeing your freelance work as a business, not just a series of teaching jobs. Develop a plan, manage your accounts, and this includes timely invoicing to clients, and also make sure you keep on top of administrative work. Your mindset around money may need to change. You need to be comfortable with invoicing, setting the rates for your classes to cover all their costs, and managing income fluctuations. Now, you're running a business, so focusing on the financial side is essential. Self-promotion and marketing is also necessary. Working freelance, you need to actively look for students and promote yourself. You shouldn't fear marketing. It's just about making it clear what you offer and why clients, students should choose you, and also just becoming known for what you do. Time management, as mentioned before, you're in control of your schedule. That means you have the freedom to do and to work when you want to work, but that freedom requires a discipline and time management skills. You should think about creating a schedule that includes working in your business, i.e. teaching, and on your business. That's the marketing, admin, professional development, etc. that you need to do. You'll need to work hard on the latter, particularly at the beginning, but make sure you don't overwork. That will make you feel resentful. Developing a growth mindset is important. Be open to learning new skills and facing any challenges that occur. This growth mindset, which means treating mistakes as part of the learning process, is essential for developing a successful business, and confidence will come as you see your business develop. Above all, the major mindset shift is for you to take ownership of all aspects of your professional life. You need to see yourself in the driving seat and actively manage your freelance work.
Meet 2025 BET Award winner Kialo EDU, the 100% free tool for thoughtful, inclusive classroom discussion. On Kialo, students contribute instantly and simultaneously to create an interactive map of a discussion, deepening their subject knowledge and enhancing their critical thinking skills. Set tasks, track participation, and provide personalized feedback in just a few clicks. And since it's compatible with all your favorite LMS platforms, it slots seamlessly into your existing workflow. Over 1 million educators and students are already using Kialo to make the world a more thoughtful place. Join them today at kialo-edu.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
One of the things that keeps coming up that Nicola said she was reluctant to become involved with at first, but which she now actually enjoys, is marketing. And if you're freelancing as a teacher, what do you need to know about marketing? So I think there's a lot to this, and so I would recommend you investigate a lot further, but even take a course. But here's a brief overview and aimed at a teaching business, but easily applicable to other types of businesses too. So let's say you are a teacher looking to promote your freelance teaching services. What should you do? First of all, build your personal brand and online presence. In order to become more widely known and make more contacts, this is vital. Make time for this, as it'll definitely pay off in terms of you getting the work and being able to charge the rates that you need. It's also the best way for your students to find you, or your potential students. When you start doing this, be sure to create a consistent look and feel across any websites and social media that you use. Next, create a niche. If you develop a specific niche, this can help raise your profile. It can also increase the perceived value of what you do. What students do you want to work with, and how do your skills match those aims? That's what you should focus on. Your offer should be carefully designed to help a specific group of people with something they really want, be it communication skills, English representations, passing an exam, etc. Don't be shy of embracing self-promotion. So you need to get over the idea that marketing is just bragging about your skills or what you can do. It's a way of convincing potential students to choose you. How will they know how well you can help them if they don't know you exist? Make it really clear to the students that you want to work with exactly what you can offer, how you can help, and why they should choose you. Don't think of it as selling yourself. Instead, focusing on making it clear what it is that you can do to help them. Then you should develop your offer. Create something that is more specific than just offering general English classes, for example. As I mentioned before, develop your niche. You really need to stand out from the crowd. What is it that students want? Is there a niche that you can focus on? Specifically focus on that and present yourself as the expert in that area, or think about it at least, and emphasize your skills, passion, experience, etc. Then you need to make sure you're noticed. Find out where teachers promote themselves locally, if you're giving classes face-to-face, for example, and where you're likely to find potential learners. Use social media effectively and create content that can reach them. And don't just rely upon referrals from other students, but also make sure you tell your existing students that you're available and ask them to tell their friends. Connect with the teachers too and refer to them and ask for referrals when they are available and can't do a particular class they're offered. Set up a website and learn a little bit about search engine optimization, SEO, so you can make sure your potential students can find you if they're using a search engine. Use relevant keywords for that and create valuable content. If you update your content with a blog, for example, or various posts that might be of interest to potential students or even other teachers, then you'll get known a lot better, and people will be able to find your online presence much better than if you don't do anything to update your content. Network and build connections. So that's a bit like what I said before. Building a network is important if you're working freelance. Personal recommendations are a very valuable way to find students, and belonging to a number of communities, be they online or face-to-face, and connecting with other freelancers, other teachers, as mentioned before, can be very helpful. You might want to think about potential passive income streams. Now, this can be by selling materials or setting up digital courses or other things, and this can generate income for you, supplementary income, for example, but you do need to remember that they also require a lot of work, and unless you have an existing audience for them, and unless you spend time marketing these courses, materials, etc., it could be very difficult for you to make any money from them. For this reason, it's probably best to start by developing a good one-to-one or small group offer of classes first. And then finally, develop the right mindset. You aren't just offering hourly classes, remember. You're the owner of a business. Adopt that mindset and everything that comes with it. And this includes understanding that marketing, that not selling yourself, but making sure that people can find you, that you're promoting what you do is necessary. Spend time doing this and concentrate on finding students and other work by promoting your services, and over time you will grow your business. I mentioned earlier how I worked for a period of time as a freelancer when I lived in Barcelona in Spain. This was something I fell into rather than I wanted to do at first, and I got offered work as a teacher at a university and polytechnic. This was quite well paid, but it required me to set myself up as a freelance. That I did, and I needed the services of an accountant to help me. Because I'd already set myself up as freelance, I wondered about other work that I could do, and through contacts, ended up taking on freelance translation work for a variety of different clients and agencies. All of this I got through people I knew. I also had some private classes. What I didn't like about working freelance was that I was working very long hours. I also didn't really treat it as a business. It was, for me, just a series of teaching and translating jobs. So I was a reluctant freelancer, and I definitely could have done with hearing the advice I mentioned beforehand. In the end, I first lost the translation work and decided that I didn't want to look for more. Translation was something back then that was very laborious and involved working alone for long periods of time, often at weekends and late into the night, especially with tight deadlines. I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do, and at the time I had enough work teaching. Then I lost the freelance teaching work as it cut back on the number of teachers they needed. Unfortunately, I had contracted work elsewhere and was able to increase the hours I did. That was some time ago, and although similar options are still available to teachers who want to work freelance or supplement their income, I think there are other options available now too. So let's look at some of these. Now, outside of traditional classroom teaching, here are some options for teachers to earn additional money. We have, of course, online teaching and tutoring. There is freelance English tutoring through various organizations or on your own, of course. Teaching on platforms where you can set up, and the platform provides a way of students contracting you, taking a percentage or a fee. And starting a private tutoring business completely on your own is also possible. You can teach synchronously through Zoom or Google Meet or other platforms. Then, of course, there's content creation. Now, one thing that I talked about last week with my guest is setting up a YouTube channel. That could be for teaching tips, pronunciation, grammar, etc. And they're not only YouTube, Instagram is another option. You can earn through advertisements, sponsors, or even charge people to subscribe for extra content. Then there's blogging or writing articles about language learning, lesson plans, etc. And if you're able to build a reputation as an expert in a particular niche, then this can be very, very good. It's all about getting to know the people and making contacts. So networking in particular is a way of expanding your opportunities to write, and setting up your own particular blog to begin with could be a way of getting started as well. Creating and selling digital resources, lesson plans, worksheets, ebooks. You can either self-publish these or pitch ideas to publishers, etc., in the way that Nicola did. Then when it comes to curriculum development and editing and other kinds of sort of working with publishers, for example, there's writing textbooks or course materials, and there's still a large demand for these, though competition, I think, is rife, and it can be very difficult to get a foot in the door. Editing and proofreading for ESL publishers. This is one way to get started as a materials writer. Sometimes you can get work. Item writing as well for examinations. And then there's developing online courses on platforms like Udemy, Teachable, etc. And you can easily set up your own course and start teaching or training But the difficulty, I think, here is capturing participants for that course, which could be synchronous or asynchronous or hybrid. Then, of course, there's exam preparation and coaching. You can specialize in particular exams such as IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge exams. There's a lot of demand for this, especially if you're able to develop expertise and have a good success rate. And again, it's a question of being able to persuade people to contract you for that. Language-related services include, as I mentioned before, translation and interpretation, if you're particularly fluent in another language, very good at it. As I mentioned before, though, the effectiveness of Gen AI when it comes to translation has had a profound effect on the amount of work available for translators, not for interpreters, but definitely for translators. Then another interesting option is voiceover work. Now, voiceover work is available and needed for things like audio, books, English learning, apps, etc. And this is a very interesting area, particularly if you have any experience acting. And I imagine, though, the number of opportunities available to be very low for this. There is, of course, teacher training and workshops as an option. Running workshops for teachers, webinars, face-to-face training. This is a good option, particularly if you have teacher training qualifications and a lot of experience as a teacher, and particularly in areas of high demand for training. You can build a reputation, and again, there are organizations that will contract you, or you can do it freelance. Offering coaching and mentoring for new EFL teachers is another option. Then when it comes to working in ed tech, you could become an instructional designer. You can specialize in learning design, writing self-access materials, etc. Again, I think there is a lot of demand for this, but finding the openings, opportunities can prove to be difficult. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about what teachers in English language teaching do when they leave the classroom. You've heard from Nicola some of the things she has done, and I've spoken a little about this too, but what other options are there? There are, of course, lots of education-related careers. There's teacher training and professional development that I mentioned before, becoming a trainer for new EFL teachers in particular, or working in certification programs is an option. There's curriculum design and instructional design, and I spoke a little bit about that earlier. Creating educational content, textbooks or online courses for language learners. Then there's academic administration, so working in student services, program coordination or admissions at language schools or universities. That's an option. Educational consulting, advising schools or institutions or on language programs, methodology or assessment. And then, of course, working for publishers in sales or other support areas which support the publishing of course books, textbooks, which is a very big part of the sector. Writing and editing and publishing is, of course, related to this area as well. Content writing and blogging, writing articles, textbooks, digital content related to language learning. Copywriting and marketing. Nicola mentioned marketing content, which there's always demand for. So creating content for companies, especially in education industries or elsewhere. Editing and proofreading, you can work on academic papers, business documents, or English language publications. Then when it comes to working in business or in corporations, there's corporate training and coaching, of course, which is teacher adjacent, teaching business English or soft skills to professionals, human resources and recruitment, especially in companies hiring international talent or English teachers. There's a demand for that. Customer success and sales, working for ed tech companies or international businesses requiring strong communication sales skills. I mentioned translation and interpretation. You can work as a freelance translator if you're bilingual, translating content between languages and have a good way of networking and making lots of contacts. Interpretation services as well. There's still a big demand for working in business, healthcare, or legal settings in particular. Then when it comes to remote and online opportunities, e-learning and ed tech is still a very important growing business. developing language learning apps or AI-powered language tools is there's a demand for that. Virtual assistants and remote admin work, supporting online businesses, leveraging strong organizational communication skills. Teachers are well suited for that. And then freelance work, offering writing, tutoring, or training service independently. Then finally, maybe international development and NGOs. And working with community and refugee support programs is a possibility, assisting non-native English speakers with language learning in social service roles, etc. There's a demand for that. And NGO and non-profit work supporting global education initiatives or literacy programs. So that brings us to the end of today's Sunday Lunch Show. Many thanks to today's guest, Nicola Prentis, and all of you joined us live. Thanks to those of you listening back to the recording. So that's it from me. There are Teachers Talk radio shows all week on all manner of interesting topics. So please listen in live or back to the recordings. And I hope you will join me again next week at the same time. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.